Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. Once upon a time, in the middle of winter, a queen was sitting by her window sewing. As she looked out at the snow, she pricked her finger with her needle, and 3 drops of blood fell on the snow. The red looked so beautiful on the white snow that she thought, if only I had a child as white as snow, as red as blood, and as black as ebony. Soon after, the queen gave birth to a baby girl who had skin as white as snow, lips as red as blood, and hair as black as ebony. They named her Snow White. Sadly, the queen died shortly after the child was born. A year later, the king remarried. His new wife was beautiful, but she was also very vain and cruel. She had a magic mirror, and every day she would ask it, "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who is the fairest of them all?" And the mirror would always reply, "You are the fairest of them all." But Snow White grew up and became more and more beautiful. One day, the mirror told the queen, "You, my queen, are fair, it's true, but Snow White is even fairer than you." This enraged the queen, and she decided to get rid of Snow White. She ordered a huntsman to take Snow White into the forest and kill her. However, the huntsman couldn't bring himself to do it and told Snow White to run away and hide. She wandered through the forest until she found a little cottage. Inside, everything was small and neat, with 7 little chairs, 7 little beds, and 7 little bowls. Exhausted, Snow White ate a little food and fell asleep on one of the beds. This cottage belonged to 7 dwarfs who worked in the mines. When they returned home that evening, they found Snow White asleep. She awoke and told them her story. The dwarfs took pity on her and invited her to stay with them in exchange for keeping the house tidy and cooking for them. Meanwhile, the queen asked her mirror again, "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who is the fairest of them all?" The mirror replied, "You, my queen, are fair, it's true, but Snow White beyond the mountains with the 7 dwarfs is still 1,000 times fairer than you." The queen realized that Snow White was still alive. Enraged, she disguised herself as an old peddler woman and went to the dwarf's cottage. She offered Snow White a poisoned comb, and when Snow White used it, she fell unconscious. The dwarfs returned just in time to save her. The queen tried again, this time with a poisoned lace for a corset. Again, Snow White was saved by the dwarfs. Finally, the queen made a poisoned apple. Disguised as a farmer's wife, she offered the apple to Snow White. As soon as Snow White took a bite, she fell to the ground, apparently dead. The dwarfs couldn't revive her, so they placed her in a glass coffin. Time passed, and one day a prince came to the forest and saw Snow White in her coffin. He was struck by her beauty and asked the dwarfs if he could take her to his castle. The dwarfs agreed. As the prince's servants were carrying the coffin, they stumbled, and the piece of poisoned apple was dislodged from Snow White's throat. She woke up, and the prince declared his love for her. Snow White and the prince were married in a grand celebration. The evil queen, in her jealousy, attended the wedding, but was recognized and punished for her wickedness, and they lived happily ever after. This classic tale illustrates the triumph of good over evil and the importance of inner beauty.